Welcome. It is no accident that you have found your way to the Release the Genie podcast. What would you do with 3 wishes? And what if you discovered that you are in fact that very genie that could grant them? Well, join us now as we discover who our next genie is as we listen in and learn the stories of triumph, inspiration, and passion with some very special guests. And now, without further delay, your host of the Release the Genie podcast, Mr. Paul Rogers.
That's so much better. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. I am your host, Paul Rogers, and welcome to another episode of Release the Genie. We have got a very, very special guest today, Lynn. Delgaudio. Have I said that name right?
You know me so Delgaudio. Hey,
Delgaudio.
it's one of those Italian names that no one gets it right.
Delgaudio.
Perfecto.
Oh, there we go. Look, what a recovery. So let me give you a little intro. This lady, first of all, started her corporate career in finance and real estate. And like so many in the corporate career, they felt stuck. So she actually have churned this around. So she's a mind-step coach with a 6-step mindset. She is a speaker. She is a coach. As I've said, she looks after both the professional and personal. She's a great author, and I have her wonderful book here, Altered on Impact, a real good read and very eye-opening. So without further ado, here is Lynn Delgaudio.
Bene. Thank you, Paul.
So, having set a little bit of a backdrop for you, I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah. So thanks for that. And I refer to it as a 6-step mind style. And I define mind style as the manner in which in the practice of how we think, because we always hear about a healthy lifestyle, right? But how do we nourish our minds? And we're so physically focused in this world, but we don't really often think about what we're thinking about or how we think. And there's this whole realm and I know there's a lot of mindset coaches out there, but I've got kind of a unique approach. And you know what started me on this journey was in 2014, my traumatic injury, which kind of halted me. You know, things can just stop you on a dime, right? And I was, like you said, that professional kind of rat on a wheel, feeling very unfulfilled, very kind of outwardly successful, but inwardly empty, really. And that I had grown so far away from myself. Well, God intervened, and I was at the gym one day after a nice long run, and sat down at the lat pull down machine and put my 80 pounds of weight set and just started pulling. And on one of the pull downs, the whole system snapped and the metal bar came crashing into my head with a force of 80 pounds. I had a neck injury, TBI, the seated position caused a hypershifting in the low back that created a formation of a cyst on my spinal cord, which had all sorts of incredibly painful implications. And thank God I suck at suicide, so I can, here to tell you. But my story. I mean, the whole healing process is what really allowed me to pay attention to this, close that gap between that personality self I had created and the true core self that I came into this world to be. And in closing that gap and reconnecting with Lynn is where I found true power and true just internal worth, and that seemed to be lacking prior to the injury. So it was a miracle, honest to God. Weird way.
I admire and I resonate with so much of what you said, obviously, but the whole idea of actually turning from professional to personal, and identifying, first of all, that there is that gap. I think that's what actually makes you so unique.
Yeah, and it's true. And I know people understand that because from an early age, we feel that. From an very early age, we feel a tug away. Like imagine like you've got this line going, like this is your core, and we get pulled away from that over time through conditioning, right? And I don't know that we really understand what it is, but we feel it from an early age. And when we're able to just forget about that personality and just reconnect, and it's a scary thing if you say you got to let your personality go. It's like, well, that's what's familiar. It sounds kind of scary because you feel like you're letting yourself go, but you're not saying goodbye to you. You're saying hello. And it's almost like reconnecting with an old friend who's always been there, who's never let you down. It's reconnecting to that source, that spirit. And, my spirit never gave up on me. Even the day after, when I woke up and thought I was never going to wake up again, and I woke up and went, crap, I suck at suicide, man. And I was like, but that was one of the aha moments for me, is like, my spirit never gave up. So damn it, I'm not giving up on my spirit. And that was the day that I said, I'm going to implore, beg, demand, whatever I've got to do. If I've got to stand on my head, I'm going to find the one person who can finally figure out this pain and help me live again. And yeah, so it's pretty empowering. But yeah, I think that is what makes my approach unique.
And you've been through the ring of fire, so every time that happens, you bring back a unique message. And I think from what you said there, and there's so much value. That's the big thing. Lots of value. Now you touched upon sort of an aha moment, which I think is a release the genie moment. Is that your release the genie moment, or is there another one which you've sort of got tucked up your sleeve?
There were a few. I mean, obviously, so I think one of the initial aha moments was, people would call to check on me. Like I was very new to this area. I didn't have a supportive network. I didn't have family, and try to get through an injury like this by yourself. Like, God, I don't know how. I mean, you learn to ask for help, right? I was never that person, but I asked complete strangers for help. People showed up that I didn't even know. People at the gym who had heard about my injury, they had like this strategy. Who's going to bring milk? Who's going to bring food today? I'll go bring her here. It was unbelievable, little gifts peppered throughout the journey. But when people called to check on me, they would immediately go into this like anger mode, which I felt was really odd, because I'm like, wait a minute, that's my injury. And I'm not angry, because the extent of the injury keeps you from understanding the extent of the injury early on. But I would hear all this anger, and when I heard these people like screaming at me, aren't you mad? You're never going to run again. Oh my God, this is horrible. And what are you going to do? And my brain, I literally felt my brain swell inside my head. You know what I'm talking about, right? And the eye pain and the fanning and the nausea and the dizziness. And when I talk about it, I still feel it in the body. But and I realized, wow, or the potential for bankruptcy, because the medical bills were astronomical. If I let myself go there, I was re-traumatizing myself. So I learned real quick to get my dog close by and start just pet my dog, or think of the ocean, or think of sunset, anything, because intuitively I knew this is going to have to calm down in order to heal. But so the aha moment was, bad thoughts in the field, I feel bad in my body, but good thoughts feel good. So I'm just going to think good thoughts. And it sounds so simple and stupid, but it was really like the moment that set me on this journey. And then I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to wait for a bad thought. I get to pick what I want to think about. I get to choose in any moment what I want to think about. And I don't know, I can just use my thoughts as active change agents. Like that was mind blowing, like blew my mind when I realized I get to control the field. That was like the biggest moment of all that sent me on this journey of, and then I just like wanted to keep practicing these little exercises I was developing for myself. And I don't know, it was just like, you know what, listening to the body and responding. It was that simple.
You're actually so right to actually talk about a choice, because you can rest, you can lay down, but then it's your decision to get back up again and taking responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah.
A wonderful aha moment, and I know it's going to deeply resonate with people watching in this sort of very strange period of where we're going. So some great advice there. So,
you know, one other aha moment I want to share, because this was also mind blowing. I mean, I had so many, but we were pre-merger at the bank where I was working, and my boss called me one day and he said, "Get over here. We need a one-on-one." And I thought, oh God, my job's probably done, right? And by the way, when they finally sent me back to work 6 months later, I forgot how to do my job. So I thought, oh, it's finally caught up with me, right? And I go into his office and he sits down. He's like, "Are you looking for work?" I said, "No, why?" He goes, "Are you sure?" I said, "Trust me, you'd be the first or second to know." No. "Why are you asking?" And he said, "You just seem happy." I'm like, "I am happy." And he goes, "No, but like consistently, I've been watching you the last few months. You're like really steady, way productive, and really happy." I'm like, "All the stuff the CEO is doing doesn't bother you?" And I sat back and I said, "Listen," I said, "all these decisions the CEO is making, that's not going to impact my happiness. It's not conditional upon how." And he just like took his pencil and just went, "Huh." And I like had a bubble above my head that went, "Huh, I did it. I did it." I completely changed everything internally so that my circumstances didn't matter. Still had the same crappy job, the same annoying coworkers. The morale was through the floor pre-merger, same stressors, but they were like pinging off of me. It didn't matter anymore. So the same things that were helping me heal were helping me in my career. It was amazing.
So you weren't just healing in a personal thing, you healed holistically in every area, including your actually fairly stressful corporate career. That's amazing. I mean, that is, that illustrates the power of the mind there.
Yeah.
So look, running off the back of that, what has been one of your inspirational quotes or mantras which you now live by?
Don't look back. You're not going that way.
Yes.
Right. Because we tend to live at like all these thoughts that hold us back are usually the ones that are somehow tied to the past. If we really, really deconstruct and evaluate them. And, if I want to live, we look at Newtonian versus quantum world, right? Our past doesn't exist. And so, but we still have a lot of energy in our bodies and in our minds tied to the past and our thinking. And even the present, like my whole thing is, I want to keep that vision of the future intact. And it's hard. Trust me, it's been hard in 2020. It has derailed me. And I'm still a human being. I've got to keep coming back to these lessons I learned. I actually go back and read my own books sometimes when I'm like, wait, I'm slipping off the rails. I got to take my own medicine here. But even by the time that we hear a lot of times like live in the present, right? By the time we recognize the present, it's like already in the past. And so, but me, along my whole journey was, I got to let go of that past. And I want to gain wisdom from memories, meaning I don't want to have a negative electrical charge in my body from the past. And now with the injury, that was tough to do, because even as I'm talking to you right now, I'm feeling, I know you get this, right?
No.
We still have those, like the nausea right now.
Yeah.
And I was terrified to even put pen to paper. And when I had to go back to the medical journals and my own personal journals and read, especially when I felt like you've read like those journal entries where I was operating at 5 or 10% capacity, feeling like an elderly person about waiting to die, basically just waiting to die. And it was hard to read that. So to me, it's like getting rid of that trapped energy.
Yeah, no,
and understanding that we can learn from those memories of the past, but we don't have to have an electrical charge. So gaining wisdom in that respect, having the memories without the.
Yeah, it's kind of it's taking the memory but without the emotional part attached to it. So yeah, and that that's a skill which, as you say, is not easy. So this is going to be really interesting. We talked about this. So what are you working on, given that you are a very positive, not taking the negativity forward? What are you working on at the moment?
So, I just did a couple of summits. I did one on immunity, and then I did one on stress. Wonderfully exciting and fun to gain all these experts from all over the globe. But I'm starting a new coaching program. Well, it's not new. I've done it one-on-one, but I'm doing a group beginning the 25th of January, and it's Unstuck and Powered Up. It's a complete mind redesign program where I take clients through what I call these impact imperatives for sustainable change and transformation. And whatever that goal is, if you just want to be a more compassionate person, or you want to be more productive at your career, or just less stressed, or, but it's really all about, like I said, closing that gap and really finding the inner. And, my whole thing is I want people to, and there's a lot of talk about power again these days and power grabs. And I had a real tough time growing up with the whole concept of power, because my meaning of power was what I saw externally was power over, which did not sit well with me. And so I rejected the definition. I rejected anything that had to do with it. And doing so, I gave my own power away, because I didn't have an understanding of how much power we all hold within. And it's not a bad thing. And I want, my goal is to help people find that power and find their truth, because I want my, and I've had unbelievable testimonials I have on my website, but people who when I see this happen with my clients, this is why I do what I do.
Yep.
When I have a client that comes in very timid and then 12 weeks later has written a book about her story, we all have a story to tell. We all have something worthy. So I guess there's two goals: is people to find their power and get unstuck. And it's very important in the era that we're living in, because it's very easy to forget. It's very easy to give our power away, not even knowing that we're doing it. And find, and share their story, because it's valid and it's worthy and it's important. We all have a story to tell.
And you're absolutely right. People don't realize that actually they're sat on their own goals. And I think it's great to actually have those two powerful words, unstuck and powered up. And I think it's a two-way process on that. So people say, oh, I'm going to get unstuck. Well, okay, what then? So I love it.
What then, and how to sustain that? Because I don't want someone going through this program and then 2 weeks later they're falling. Once I have a client, I really don't want to see them again for a while, unless they just need a tune-up. Then I know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't want people who get the rah-rah feeling and then, on Monday they're like, oh, okay, now that's finished. So I totally get that. Wonderful. What a fantastic program. So 25th of January, that's very soon. So I am very excited for you on that.
Thank you. And anyone who has any interest, they can just go to my website, Delgaudio.com, or just DM me. I haven't advertised it yet formally, but that's coming out in the next week or so.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, look, now we get to move on to the second part of the show, which is the
Okay.
real fun bit, which is that I get to ask you for my 3 wishes.
Uh-oh.
Hey. Well, being a wise genie, this is going to be effectively falling off a log for you. So here we go. My first wish is, what is the best advice you have ever received?
Jan told me years ago, because I was such a perfectionist and overachiever, you don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the fastest. You don't have to be whatever it is. All you have to do, Lynn, is just be.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then I learned through this whole process that, you know, what's even more fun than just being? Becoming.
And you know, you can see be is at the very beginning of that word. So yeah, it seems a very logical progression.
Mhm.
No, I love it. I love it. Wow, you're going to keep me thinking about that all day now. So thank you very much.
Well, I
Brilliant.
mean, we're always becoming, right?
Yeah.
When somebody says, you know, oh, you're getting older. No, you're not. You're just getting newer.
Yeah.
It's just our cells are changing constantly, right? I mean, happy birthday. Why do we have a birthday at once a year? We're changing at minute to minute, second to second. Like right now is my birthday. Right now is my birthday. We're reborn all the time.
Well, to be honest, if my son is all over that because his birthday was back in November and we're now in December and he keeps saying, is it my birthday? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
it's not your birthday. Bless his heart. So my second wish is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Two things. Don't worry. Your journey is beautiful. That would be one. And two would be, don't ever feel sorry for yourself, but it's okay to have sorrow for yourself.
Mm.
Because I don't want, you know, it's so easy to go into victim mode,
Yes.
right? Especially these traumatic injuries. But it's definitely, you want to have that compassion for yourself and that sorrow for yourself for what you're going through, and recognize and acknowledge it's a traumatic thing. It's
Mm.
tough sometimes,
Mm.
but try not to get into victim mode. And that's why, you know, I talk up in the book about appreciation. I had no idea why I was allowed to stay for the most part out of that. But I later learned, you know, the neuroscience, which is the whole impetus for me writing the book and going into coaching. Because when I realized there's science behind why what I did worked so profoundly, that's when I knew that was another real aha moment. Um, you can only be in one region of the brain at a given time, any moment. So you're really only understanding who you are moment to moment to moment. But when you're in those regions, when you're in fear, victim, shame, judgment, etc., like the amygdala, the PCC, you can't grow, you can't heal, you can't. So it's really important. That's why the appreciation piece was so incredibly important. So I know I went off on a little tangent
No, no,
there.
no.
I apologize.
No, to be honest, I now get that when you close off your heart and things, you stop the flow. And when people say, "Yeah, I'm in the flow," but when they close their heart off to it, there is no flow.
Right.
And so I think that's very, very good advice because victim mode is very, very easy. It's very seductive,
Yeah.
and therefore to keep out of that when there's sort of temptation every day to go into it, that takes, in my book, courage.
Yeah, it does. And sometimes, you know, we feel like we've lost all courage because maybe the pain is too great. And you know, those days, um, you just shift a little at a time, at a time, at a time, because you might not be able to get there from there.
Yeah, and to be honest, you know, it's tiny incremental changes rather than a sort of a great rush of stuff. No, it's it's very, very solid, and I know that that's going to resonate in lots of different fields, not just in a trauma field. So great, great. So that brings me, unfortunately, to my last wish, which is, wonder if you could share one personal habit which attributes to your success.
I've really made a habit of listening to my body and shifting my thoughts. When I feel, because your body and your emotion are the best indicators that something just shifted, something going on in here that's derailing you at any given moment. And so I've gotten really good that and persevering. It's so funny. Persevering is not a bad word. I was coaching someone one day and I said, just takes perseverance. And she's like, ugh. I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, let's just stop here and check in, because you just had a really strong reaction to a word. And words are inherently neutral. So what does that mean? Because we attach meaning to so many things. What does that mean to you? And she's like, oh, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a chore. It's going to be blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, let's reframe. Because perseverance to me is just, we know something to be true. So we're just going to continue to figure out how to get there. And it doesn't matter what kind of roadblocks are on it, because we know truth. And when you know truth, it's just like those roadblocks don't matter. It's just a softer way of approaching it. So I guess shifting, recognizing when something's going faulty up here. It could be something as simple as, I've got this work to do and I go to pick up the pile of paper and I put it down. I start procrastinating. Why did I do that? What just went through my head that made me push that aside? Just simple things. It's so easy.
It is easy, but it's like, what you don't know. So yes, because you practice it, but somebody who is looking for, and I love the way that you were able to take somebody through their block, and now it's unblocked. It's very unlikely that's going to come back. So that's a big moment in her life. That's for me, that is what I feel a mentor and a coach is about, to change the way you see things and the way you approach things. So
yeah, and it works on. So I had a client, she said, can you help me with my tennis game? And I thought, I'm not a sports psychologist, but in theory, my strategy should be able to work here, right? So we worked for second day actually was when she brought this up. And she had not won a tiebreaker in 5 months. And in 4 days later, she texted me, I just won my first tiebreaker. And the next week she had won 6 more. So
wow.
She was practicing. I mean, she was implementing these on her own. You can't just cognitively understand and not implement. You have to, you know what I mean? But she implemented and she saw success.
Wow. I mean, that's really tangible. So, that's nice, in a very intangible field. That's actually, and quick results.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's love it. Well, look, this is going to be really interesting. What one book would you recommend to our listeners and viewers?
Altered on Impact by Lynn Delgaudio.
There it is. I think I'd be disappointed if you didn't say that, to be honest.
There's so many there. My bookshelf, the Tao Physics is amazing. I mean, there's so many books. But yeah, let's start with mine.
To be honest, it's as I said before we came on, I'm halfway through it at the moment, and it's awesome. So it will give you some real insight into Lynn, and back up a lot of what Lynn's just bounced along the surface, which is really good. Well, look, where can we find you? Where are you hanging out online?
So I haven't been as active in the last couple of months on LinkedIn, but I'm going to get back to that soon, because I've been very active on LinkedIn the last year. And I'm very glad, LinkedIn family out there, because I've made the most amazing connections. Everyone I talked to on LinkedIn this year has been like, we've all been experiencing the same thing, which is I think it's beautiful. So LinkedIn is primarily where I hang out. I'm also on Facebook. I do a little on Instagram, but mostly LinkedIn, and of course my website, lynndelgaudio.com.
Awesome. Well,
And
look,
just DM me if you want, and just
yeah,
feel free to reach out.
to be honest, now we know where you are. It's the simple task is for people just to do their part and just reach out. So thank you for sharing where you are, because people are going to want to get in touch with you for the new program and just find out a bit more. So awesome.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing some work with NAMI in the coming year too on brain injury. And I just wanted, before we go, I know we got to wrap up, but I always got to give you kudos, Paul, because TBI is not easy. And you're in the very early stages. And I know what you go through on a daily basis, and the way you show up is inspiring. And I just every time I have an opportunity, I'd love to give shout out to where shout outs are due. So big respect to you. And you and I got to do something for TBI in the future. We've always talked about it, but let's make that a goal in 2021.
I love that, and very, very honoured, because that is a two-way street. So so anyone who's listening who is an organizer of events or would like a couple of broken people to talk about, we're there. So thank you very much, Lynn, for coming on and for sharing such a great amount of wisdom and inspiration.
Thank you, Paul.
And for the viewers and listeners, look, you've heard a fantastic story today. If you've been moved and inspired, reach out to Lynn, and I would really encourage you to release your genie and find your aha moment. So until next time, people, that's all from me, and thank you once again, Lynn.
Well, that's a wrap. You have been listening to yet another episode of the Release the Genie podcast with host Paul Rogers. Be sure to follow Paul on the LinkedIn platform and learn more of Paul's resources at www.takeactionacademy.ca. And until next time, as always, be mindful and be sure to release your genie. Thanks for listening.